Good morning, everyone. My name is Lucinda, and thank you for joining us in today's slideshow. Today, we'll be discussing a very important aspect of mental health. I'm sure many of you would have heard the term ADD or ADHD. This is particularly known in school-aged children as being hyperactive, inattentive, and often having learning difficulties. Today, however, we'll be looking at the effects of ADHD in adults in the workplace. We'll also look at the challenges they face and what you and I as a manager can do to help these individuals to reach their full potential. We'll also look at some statistics, the symptoms, strategies, and the resources we can use to help the people around us. Well, what is mental health? I came across this quote which says, mental health is not a destination but a process. It is about how you drive and not about where you are going. Now, this is a very important quote, and it really struck me because we so often want to get to the destination and to the finish line, and we forget about the journey and where we're going to and what we learn in the process. So this is really important to encourage not only yourself but the people around you to be in the moment and to support one another in these times. Let's have a look at the definition of ADHD according to the BMC Health Services research. Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder is a neurodevelopmental condition characterized by inattention, hyperactivity, and impulsivity, which presents itself in at least two settings and interfering with functioning. It is also recognized as the most common of the neurodevelopmental disorders that usually start in childhood. Hyperactive impulsive behaviors can include restlessness, impatience, excessive talking, or having difficulties taking part in leisure activities. Inattentive behaviors can consist of the inability to focus on details, not following through on instructions, and not seeming to listen when spoken to directly. ADHD diagnoses are primarily diagnosed in early childhood and adolescence and are seen as the most prevalent mental disorder. Evidence also strongly suggests that ADHD can present itself for the first time in adolescence or adulthood for some individuals. And many adults only get diagnosed much later in their lives, and in some cases not even until they're 80. Many times when you see individuals in the workplace, they get to realize that they have certain challenges because there's a lot more demanding in their job, or they need to do certain things that they struggle to cope with. Having said this, diagnosis should always be performed by medical practitioners such as a psychologist, psychiatrist, or your local GP. A professional diagnosis usually involves symptom tests, interviews, and an extensive medical history. According to the DSM-5, a formal diagnosis should consist of at least 6 symptoms. In adults, 5 symptoms of ADHD, and it should be present for at least 6 months. Let's have a look at some of the statistics of ADHD. The mean worldwide prevalence of ADHD is between 5.29% and 7.1% in children and adolescents under the age of 18. However, for adults, it's 4.4%. ADHD affects approximately 281,200 children and adolescents under the age of 19 and more than 530,000 adults in Australia. ADHD affects over 800,000 people in Australia today. And in Australia, children under the age of 14 was estimated to be 4.2% and for adults, 4%. Based on a local persistence study, 3% of Australian adults over the age of 15 have ADHD. Females particularly have about 1.5% less than men, so men's percentage for having ADHD is 4.9%. It is estimated in 2019, 814,500 people in Australia have ADHD. About 2 to 3% of adults are diagnosed with ADHD. And while ADHD begins in childhood and symptoms typically improve as they get older, still about 15% of them continue to have ADHD as adults. The worldwide prevalence of ADHD of all ages is estimated to be between 2 and 5%. Around 65% of those with ADHD also have another disorder. Oppositional defiant disorder is the most common in children with ADHD, and the reports rating between 40 to 60%. The estimated total health cost system in 2019 due to ADHD was $814 billion. That's about $1,000 per person with ADHD. ADHD is divided into three main categories, namely hyperactivity, inattention, and impulsiveness. And even though it's the same mental disorder, the symptoms do slightly differ in children than to adults. So let's have a quick look at them. For hyperactivity, it is mostly in children running, climbing, fidgeting. They're in constant motion. They really struggle to sit still and concentrate, and this behavior would be above normal children behavior according to their age. Hyperactivity in adults, however, is more a general restlessness, and they find it really challenging as well to sit still for long periods of time, such as meetings, movies, and lectures. In addition, they also get very easily bored with a task once it has been mastered, and they're always on the go. They also do not generally respond very well to frustrating situations. Inattention. For children, they often make careless mistakes and they do not complete assigned tasks or pay attention to detail. In adults, this is more evident in daily routine activities, and even though adults might feel that they're really multitasking and they're being productive, it is not always the case, and it does result in dissatisfied performance. Adults are more often or a lot more likely to lose their keys or their wallet or misplace certain things that they constantly have to look for. Impulsiveness. Impulsiveness in children is predominantly come out in school by skipping lines, blurting out answers, and not waiting their turns. In adults, they may also blurt out answers, but in a professional environment, it might be more suppressed. But there is patterns that you can see every day, such as speeding, engaging in risky behaviors, and conversation interruptions. They often would like to give their opinion and they cannot wait for the other person to finish the sentence, and so they will just interrupt so they can give their opinion as well. Other symptoms that might also be linked to ADHD but not limited to is anxiety, depression, personality disorders, dyslexia, disturbed sleep patterns, obsessive-compulsive disorder, impulsiveness, oppositional defiance disorder, impulsivity, and anger outbursts. Now that we know a little bit more about ADHD, the symptoms and the challenges these individuals face, what can we do to support and improve the workforce? It is a really important role as a manager to support all staff and make them reach their full potential. There's a great quote from Burns that states, "A good manager is a man who isn't worried about his own career, but rather the careers of those who work for him. My advice, do not worry about yourself. Take care of those who work for you, and you will float to greatness on their achievements." And this is really a gentle reminder that business is more than just business and the financials and the admin. It's so much more to look after people and make them exceed on whatever they do. And we as managers have a great responsibility to lift up these individuals and make them part of the workforce and have sympathy and empathy with them. Let's look at a few strategies that would improve communication and productivity. These strategies are not only for individuals suffering from ADHD, but this is also really good for all employees to improve the workforce and the overall happiness. Adults with ADHD often become very, very easily bored due to the high demand of stimulation, and they feel bored and frustrated with routine tasks and detailed paper. Asking for a person who has ADHD to be in the office from 8 to 5 doing paperwork is a real challenge, and it's not something that they actually enjoy. So what can we do to help them? First of all, Set small challenges for them. Let them finish a certain task in amount of time, and do not overload them with big tasks. This will make them feel overwhelmed and frustrated. Break up tasks into shorter tasks. This enables them to sort their goals out and also reaching them one at a time. Another important aspect is to create an environment where regular movement is encouraged. And since they're very hyperactive and they need the stimulation, maybe equip your office with a standing desk, create a healthy snack station, or equip the office with an exercise bike if possible. And this is really beneficial for all employees to stay active and promote healthy eating and fitness. Also, give them tasks that promote stimulation and responsibilities. Individuals with ADHD easily get bored with menial and routine tasks. If you ask a person with ADHD to sit at a desk or do things menial tasks, they will really get frustrated and they will make mistakes and they will not enjoy it, which would also decrease their productivity. The next area we will be looking at is distractibility. External distractions such as noises and movements can pose a great challenge. I know for myself, as a sufferer from ADHD, distractibility is a real challenge, and the slightest movement or noises do actually distract me, and it's not that easy to control. But there is always ways to improve it and make it better in the workforce. So what can we do to help? First of all, ensure your employee has a quiet office space or cubicle if possible. This will definitely minimize distractions and enhance their productivity. Equip the office with a radio where there's white noise or calm music to drown out the office noises. This makes a really big difference as well. Set small goals, as we've said before, and encourage employees to make to-do lists. Doing this would increase their focus and promote a sense of achievement and progress. Reinforce the importance of jotting down meeting notes, ideas, and important information. Making notes minimizes distractibility and employees can refer back to them when needed. Next up is hyperactivity. Adults with hyperactive type of ADHD often perform better in high-paced environments such as working with children, public speaking, and sales. Speaking for myself, I work in a very high-paced environment where I work with children and I hardly ever get time to sit still, which is perfect for me since I only need about 10 minutes as I like to be active. So encourage employees to take regular breaks to promote movement. Incorporate weekly fitness classes wherever it's possible, as it also creates teamwork and it decreases stress levels and depression. And foster mental health awareness is pivotal in the industry, and you have to educate the employees about mental health and provide them with strategies to help whenever it is possible. Impulsivity. Impulsivity and anger outbursts is a common trait of individuals suffering from ADHD. However, this is not always the case. Provide constructive criticism as much as possible. And reiterate the importance of leisure activities such as breathing exercises and meditation. Also identify possible triggers and help employees to develop a routine for coping with certain scenarios. A really great idea is to invest in a good life coach that will help you and your employees with strategies and support. Poor memory and time management. Adults with ADHD often miss deadlines, meetings, and responsibilities, and this can promote a great deal of frustration and anxiety. So what can we do to help? Well, to start off with, encourage staff to use a recorder to make copious notes. It's a great way to retain information and go back to it when needed. Create checklists when tasks are completed. Use visual reminders such as bulletin boards and sticky notes. Set reminders on your phone. Use a lot of color where possible. And employees can also set due dates as a reward for themselves when accomplishing it. And last but not least, avoid overscheduling. This will make them feel even more anxious and feel that they're not adequate at their job. Unfortunately, there is a lot of stigma around ADHD, and especially around ADHD in adults in the workplace. Not a lot of research has been done as such for adults in the workplace, and it is really important for us to bring awareness to the company and to the employees. And there's so much more that ADHD individuals can bring to the table, and they're very authentic, they're futuristic, they very creative, and if you want to get a project going, they're the people that you want on your team. They're curious, highly energetic, they have great initiative what they want to do, they're optimistic, they're fun and caring, they're very humorous and strategic as well. And I just want to encourage you to grab hold of that person and see them as an individual, not as someone that has a mental health problem or concern, but to help them and improve them and bring out the best in that person. And this quote sums it up really nice, and it says, until we accept and approve of ourselves, no amount of approval from others will keep us permanently secure. If you know of anyone that do suffer from ADHD, do not ever hesitate to ask for help and go to the website. There's a couple of websites here: the National Resource Centre on the ADHD, Beyond Blue, Thriving with ADHD, the Australian Psychologists Association, the ADHD Support Australia, the Perth Brain Centre, ADHD WA, Helping Minds, Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. All these websites are there to help you and encourage you with strategies. And you should never feel that you should not ask or feel embarrassed about anything. And you as a manager should see the signs and see however you can get help. So this concludes the end of the slideshow. I've given you a few references at the bottom of the screen where you can go and have a look. There's great resources that you can go and look up on. So I really encourage you to go and have a look, read through it, bring awareness, and help your company, help your team and your family and your friends, whoever is suffering from it, to help them get the proper support that they need.